According to NBA analytics nerds, LeBron James isn't the best player in the world. He's not even in the top 5 now. NBA analysts, meanwhile, are getting wise to the Clippers, and we are one step closer to solving the mystery of JD Martinez's groin. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is August 18th, 2023, still burnt to a crisp from vacation. Sucks for me, such is life. But again, what always puts me in a better mood is talking LA sports. So if you like being in the know about LA, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell, hit that, it'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring, let people know we exist. And comment, especially about this glorious farmer tan. Now, before we go through the news and notes, let's take a look at the scoreboard. The Dodgers have 11 consecutive wins. Last night's came the good old-fashioned way, a pitcher's duel. Austin Barnes hits a solo home run in the bottom of the 8th inning, and LA edges Milwaukee 1-0. It was Barnes' first home run of the season. Also, you remember how Lance Lynn was the worst in the American League in home runs allowed, earned runs allowed? Yeah. His ERA in Chicago, 6.5. His ERA in LA, less than 1.5. Craziness. And oh, by the way, your LA West leading Dodgers, they swept a division leader and lead the division by 10.5 games. So there's that. Meanwhile, today, Miami is now coming to town to play the Dodgers at 7. Tony Gonsolin is 8-4 with a 4.24 ERA. Sandy Alcantara is 5-10 with a 4.09 ERA. Now, I realize that everybody loves arguing over who is the best player of an era, best player right now. One of my favorites, honestly, I love watching people get blind stinking drunk at the sports bar and argue over who is the greatest of all time. I love that because when you add talking sports with massive amounts of alcohol, it's only a matter of time before the topic changes from who is the GOAT to which mom is better in the sack. And then it's on. And I live for that. I love sitting in the corner watching that in the dark by myself. It's a great time. But the Athletic they got to take it 12, 24, 36 steps further than that. They try to do it soberly. So right now, they grab their analytics people, they crunch numbers, they crunch clips, they go through histories, and they rank every player in the NBA right now in terms of who is the best. And they even do it by tiers. LeBron James has slipped to tier 2A. In other words, not quite elite anymore. He's in the same tier with Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, and Devin Booker. Now, the writer ranks James as the 7th best player right now in the NBA. 7th. He did agree that on any given night, James has the ability to flash the transcendent abilities that have made him a surefire Hall of Famer, first ballot, the amazing things that James has been able to do for the last 20 years in the NBA. But upon further review, James's lateral quickness simply isn't there anymore. And his intensity wavers during the regular season. Could be great one night, could be average another. Might even disappear once in a blue moon. The man has played about 66,000 NBA minutes. That blows my mind. 66,000 minutes of NBA basketball. So can we really complain that he's no longer the best player in the game? Can we? Is it fair? And by the way, you might make an argument on maybe 1 or 2 of the 6 players ranked above LeBron James, but I'm going to give you the names. Here they are. Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, and Nikola Jokic. Now, if you think James is better than 1 or 2 of those 6, I'll listen to that argument. Absolutely. I get it. But he's not better than all of them. We have to grant that. Anthony Davis, meanwhile, was ranked as the 14th best player in the game today. He was slotted along with Damian Lillard and John Morant. Now, what makes Davis so effective and what makes you think he should be ranked higher is because in the playoffs, he is arguably one of the top 2 or 3 finishers in the NBA. He will get those 2 points when you need them. And that matters during the playoffs. Defenses tighten up, defenses get a little bit chippier, and Davis will actually take matters into his own hands and get you those 2 points time in and time again, which makes you think he should be ranked higher. But let's understand why he's not. You're not stupid. You know why just as well as I do. It's his lack of durability. Now, regarding the Clippers, I mentioned that Kawhi Leonard was in the same tier as LeBron James at 2A, right? The writer says that the Clippers forward actually has enough equity to be considered the best player on the floor whenever he's playing. Which means, why is he not on the top 5? You can answer that yourself as well. You can't count on him to be on the court. NBA analysts are now picking up on this. It's been a while. If you remember when Paul George first came to LA with Kawhi on the Clippers, everybody thought it was only going to be a matter of time until that team was in an NBA Finals. It was simply a 2-headed monster too good to ignore. But it hasn't happened, and that's been over the course of 5 years. Now, Paul George is still a strong player as well. He's ranked in the top 20, though. He has slipped as well, too. In his prime, Paul George was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. That, though, was with the Pacers. Now, he's damn good, but you don't put him in the same realm as Defensive Players of the Year as you did when he was younger. So, the analytics people and analysts overall have finally gotten wise to what's going on with the Clippers. And as for the Lakers, I think even the most ardent Laker fan would agree that mid-season rebuild was something that actually helped save the franchise overall. LeBron James needs help. He's finally got it. We don't have much progress on the recovery for Dodgers designated hitter JD Martinez, but at least we have progress on what was actually jacked up. You might remember the guy originally pulled up lame a few weeks ago, said that there were some days where he couldn't even walk, and then they couldn't even figure out what was going on. Was it his lower back? Was it his hamstring? Was it his groin? And then they started doing MRIs. It was a mystery wrapped inside an enigma, wrapped inside a man's groin. Which is not a mystery that I want to spend a lot of time uncovering. But they try to make it look like the X-Files of groin injuries. There's Mulder and Scully with their flashlights getting really close-up looks at JD Martinez's groin. Great. Not exactly something I ever wanted to talk about in my life, but there we are. They now believe that it's the adductor muscle. Now, for those of you who haven't taken sectional anatomy, the adductor muscle is that little long muscle that goes along the inner thigh. Basically, from the upper part of your knee to the business area, if you will. The fun zone. The place where Mr. Happy is pretty close by. That's where the adductor muscle is. Now, by the way, just because they know or have a really strong idea now of what the problem is, it doesn't mean he's closer to returning. The man has missed 12 consecutive games. But hey, there are people who are convinced aliens exist. And just like JD Martinez's injury, the truth is out there. The Rams were down 2 right tackles during their joint practice with the Raiders yesterday. Rob Havenstein apparently had a stinger in his neck. Sean McVay doesn't anticipate that Havenstein will miss significant time. But then Havenstein got replaced by Logan Bruss at right tackle. And soon after, his fingers got so bent, it made you think of grandma with her arthritis plus osteoporosis. Bent all kinds of ugly ways. The type of stuff that makes you want to go puke. Looks painful, and it is painful. But then he got it taped up and he returned to the field of play. Now this matters because we are starting to inch closer to the regular season. The Rams, at some point, we are trying to sift through all the news and notes to try to figure out what the Rams' offensive and defensive lines are going to look like. The LA Times suspects that from left to right, it's Alaric Jackson at left tackle, Steve Avila, Coleman Shelton at center, Tremaine Ankrum, and Havenstein at right tackle with Logan Bruss on the bench. Now, last week, we had two different people starting instead of that five to the Athletic, what the Athletic wrote, I should say. Jordan Rodriguez of the Athletic, very bright lady, I must tell you. She seems to be sold on both Jackson starting at left tackle and Shelton at the center. There were no fights in yesterday's joint practice with the Raiders, but Aaron Donald told the LA Times, quote, "I feel like I ain't where I want to be. I did some good things and some things I didn't like." Now this matters too, because as much as we don't know with stability what the Rams are going to do on the offensive line, we have even less certainty with what the Rams have on the defensive line. If you recall, the Rams' remodeled line looked terrible against the Chargers in the preseason opener. Now, true, Donald didn't play, but the Chargers rushed for almost 7 yards per attempt against the Rams. Now, as it stands, McVay and Donald continue to sell us on rookie defensive lineman Kobe Turner. Quote, "With Kobe, I thought he did a really good job as the game went on. He got only 20 snaps, but he's a guy that plays with a relentless motor and effort, understands the techniques and the fundamentals," unquote. Donald, for his part, says Turner is having flashes. If we put all of the intel that we've been talking about with the Rams defensive line together, this is what we think we know. We know what the Rams have in Aaron Donald. That's a given. They seem to really like Kobe Turner playing next to Aaron Donald. So he appears to be, I guess, a lock. Edge rusher Byron Young, as of now, though, is only good for about 20 plays because of his conditioning. He's not used to this level of contact and energy needed in the NFL. Now, I'm not trying to tell you this to talk crap. I am, in fact, a Rams fan. I'm simply trying to tell you guys what we have to come to expect this year. There's a lot of uncertainty. And by the way, just like the Chargers ran the football a lot last week, the Raiders really like to run the football. So there's that. There wasn't a lot of Chargers news yesterday, but I have to tell you, I was kind of dumbfounded by the reporting of a joint practice between the Chargers and the New Orleans Saints. Now, according to the LA Times, the Chargers defense reduced Derek Carr to roadkill. Throttled the Saints offense, the guy wrote. But then you go to the New Orleans side, and the consistent headline I saw from their reporters was that the New Orleans receivers had a field day against the Bolts secondary. Apparently, Chris Olave and Michael Thomas in New Orleans just wiped the floor with Asante Samuel, J.C. Jackson, and Derwin James. So you have to sit there and you go, wait, who do we believe? Which is it? You might hate me for saying this if you're a Chargers fan. I think we need to be skeptical of the LA Times because the Chargers beat writer for The Athletic was also there. So I'm going to let him break the tie because Jackson, you could see why he would struggle. The man had knee surgery last year. You're going to put him up against the Saints receivers, that offense that does nothing but just have one long play after another? Yeah, I could see Jackson struggling. The Athletic also reported Jackson allowed 2 receptions. The Athletic also reported that Olive also did in fact get the best of Asante Samuel. So if we put that data together, just like we tried to do for the Rams a moment ago, what does that tell us about the Chargers defense? Does it suggest that the Chargers have to get to the quarterback as quickly as possible so that their secondary doesn't get exposed? Possible. The Times is also reporting that defensive tackle Austin Johnson has finally been allowed to rejoin the team in practice. He has been unable to since November. He had season-ending knee surgery then. Finally, Detroit signed former Chargers wide receiver Jason Moore. Not a huge loss. The dude only played 20 games in 4 years for the Bolts. Training camp for the USC football team is over. Next weekend, the season begins against San Jose State. some of the news, like I said, it feels a little bit too happy-talky right now. CBS, for example, chose 6 freshmen who should make an immediate impact on their respective college teams. One of the people they chose was USC wide receiver Zachariah Branch. No kidding, we knew. We knew. I mean, he's still a teenager, right? He's a freshman. He's drawing comparisons to the NFL's Tyreek Hill. This is something we already knew. Now, don't get me wrong, the speed is going to be extremely useful on special teams because the USC wide receiver room is stacked. So if Branch doesn't make an impact there, you could easily see him returning punts and kickoffs. So that's kind of helpful, but it's something we already knew. I'm also starting to wonder if Miller Moss is a lock to be the primary backup quarterback, though. Lincoln Riley was really talking up freshman Malachi Nelson on this podcast called Saturday Out West. Quote, "It's been a 180. I would say even mentally, too. It was great for Nelson to get the reps during spring. He was probably operating below 50% of his physical capability at that point, though. We're glad that he went through it. He's glad that he went through it. It certainly made him better," unquote. Now, if you recall, Nelson was arguably the top quarterback in last year's recruiting class. Right up there with Arch Manning, who I went to Texas, and Dante Moore, who obviously is over at UCLA. Nelson had shoulder surgery in December, by the way. That was why he was struggling in the spring practice. On defense, Riley told The Athletic that 2 starting linebackers from last year have still been limited at practice. That would be Shane Lee and Eric Gentry. Now, when asked if the 2 would be ready for week 1, all defensive coordinator Alex Grinch said was, "I believe so," unquote. Now, if that's the case and they're not ready, we might see Tackett Curtis, a freshman, start in game 1. Angel City have signed midfielder Elizabeth Eddy, who graduated from USC and has also played for 4 other NWSL teams. They also signed Kelsey Hill, a recent Pepperdine grad. She played defender and midfielder for the Waves. Now, you let me know, though, what you think in the comments thread. Where do you rank LeBron James or Kawhi or Paul George or or Anthony Davis in the pantheon of today's NBA players? Are we, in fact, looking at problems or question marks across the defense for both the Rams and Chargers? And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We talk LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.